Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to now call the December meeting of the Sustainable and Economic Vitality Committee to order. Our committee covers topics related to sustainable initiatives and the economic vitality for our great city. Note that no formal votes or decisions about city programs, policies, or budgets will happen here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff and stakeholders and community members to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of whenever you choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any item on the meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any thoughts, questions, or ideas. The link to the comment cards can be found on our committee webpage at tempe.gov/SEV, and you'll find contact information for committee members and staff there for non-agendized questions as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Oh. Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Even better when I have my mic on. The next item on our agenda is item number 2, review and approval of meeting minutes from the October 7th meeting of the Sustainable and Economic Vitality Committee. If there are no objections, I move we approve the minutes from the November 7th, 2022 meeting as written.
I have no objections, so I second that motion. So the November meeting minutes are unanimously approved. The next item on our agenda is item 3A, public comments. This committee welcomes public comment. According to Arizona open meeting law, the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public comment that are not listed on the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. A 3-minute limit per person will take in effect. Tanya, do we have any comment cards or requests to speak for this meeting?
Vice Mayor and Council Member, we do not have any public comments today.
All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 4A, current items and updates. And we'll begin with item 4A1, Sustainable and Economic Vitality 2022/2023 Work Plan. As a new committee with different areas of interest, we are required to formulate a working plan for the year. After receipt of input from Economic Development, Sustainability and Resilience Office, and Transportation and Engineering Departments, SEV committee staff Nikki Amberg and Tanya Gray formulated a work plan that reflects those requests. Vice Mayor Adams and I have reviewed the new work plan separately, and I have no changes to the SEV committee work plan as written. Vice Mayor, do you have any changes to the document?
I also don't have any changes to the SEV work plan document. If there are no objections, I move that we approve the SEV 2022-2023 work plan and refer it to council as a whole at the January 12th, 2023 City Council work study session.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Nikki, Tanya, and city staff for your help and guidance. I have no objections and second that motion. So the Sustainability and Economic Vitality 2022-2023 work plan is unanimously approved. Okay, moving on to item 4A2, streetcar project and fare update. And I believe Eric Iwerson is here from the Transportation Department to give us an update. In addition, I'd like to include a side note. We'd like to welcome Eric with his second hat that he is wearing also as our interim chief of staff for the mayor and city council. Hi, Eric.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Thank you for that introduction. I'm Eric Iverson with City of Tempe, multiple hats right now. Thanks for the opportunity to share an update on the streetcar project, and I think specifically what you requested, Vice Mayor Adams and Councilmember Chin, was what the next steps are on our fare collection and the process for beginning to start collecting a fee for riding the train. Wanted to go to the next slide. Wanted to give you a little bit of just laying the groundwork for what the streetcar is. Remind everyone, this is a 3-mile rail project in our downtown, connects redevelopment areas along Rio Salado and Apache, connects our most historic downtown neighborhoods with the downtown Mill Avenue. 3 miles, 14 stops. Each stop has a history panel and public art. Connects with the rest of our transit system. It's integrated in with Orbit, Fixed Route, and Light Rail. It opened, as I think everyone is familiar, it opened in the spring, late spring of this year, May of 2022. This was a big regional and federally funded construction project. We did have local monies, and we did have private landowner partnerships like ASU, Suncor, some of the major property owners along the alignment, which was fantastic to get the project built. This project is $6 million in operations annually, and that's from the Tempe Transit Tax. So it's no small fee, but that handles everything in the way of the operations and maintenance for the project. We are, however, not complete in the number of trains that we will be bringing on board for the project. We have 5 of the 6 trains. Until we get that 6th train, and we're expecting that in the spring of 2023, until we get that train, we are at a little bit slower frequency. So once we get that final train, we get it tested and it's certified to operate with all of our riders, we'll be at a 12-minute frequency, which is great. And that matches the best of our Orbit frequency as well as the light rail frequencies. And then getting into how it's performing and our next steps for FAIR, we've had great ridership. I think everyone has, if you're in the downtown, you see people waiting for the train, that's great. That's what we wanted to see. We've had a strong initial performance with the ridership. We have roughly 1,200 boardings a day, a little bit shy of 1,200 boardings a day. And for perspective on that, some of the highest Orbit routes, like Mercury and Jupiter, this is a little bit below the ridership for those higher performing Orbit routes, but well above, say, Saturn route, but below light rail. So light rail is a 26-mile route, actually more than that now, but a long route that has about 7,000 riders a day. So we're doing really good for an initial 3-mile route to have roughly 2,000 riders a day. So we feel good about that. And then we just want to emphasize that, with this big investment that we make, both annually and with the initial capital investment, this is a transformational, as we've all seen with light rail, it's a transformational project. It affects the land use. It's really the best investment that we can make in the way of sustainable transportation well into the future.
Question.
Yes, Vice Mayor Adams.
Yes, so you said that the light rail has 21 miles and 7,000 riders a day?
I think that light rail is close to 30 miles now. I should know this off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yes, it started as a 26-mile route, but there's been extensions into Mesa, and then obviously there's one's under construction in Phoenix. But yeah, we're just shy of 7,000 riders a day.
Okay, and then,
on that system.
And you said we're having 2,000 riders a day on our streetcar?
Correct, just shy of 2,000.
That's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And when you think of how far light rail goes and how this goes just around Tempe, and so we need to be touting that. So
agreed.
Thanks, Eric.
We're happy about that, and we certainly did. We had some worries about what ridership would be, so we're glad to see that response. Getting into FAIR, so a couple of things that we wanted to share, that staff wanted to share. Council had indicated several years ago, and we had agreement with Valley Metro Board, Rail Board, to have free fare for a year. So we're in the middle of that process right now, and it's really just to encourage people to ride and test it out and get people familiarized with the system. But we are moving towards the introduction of the $1 fare for the streetcar that would start on May 22nd of 2023. To change that, if we wanted to go free for longer, if we wanted to look at another fare structure, maybe half that price or something, we'd have to go back to the Rail Board, of which Vice Mayor Adams is a member. It's a four-city board, the rail cities, to change that. So we just want to put that out there, that if we had a change from council direction, we would have to go through that process at Valley Metro. Fare collection is really important to us in the city and in the region. We bring in, if you see on the screen, there's some numbers here that show the maximum that we can bring in, or that we've brought in historically, is about $6.5 million in recovery of those rider fees. So, people pay for most of our routes, they pay to get on the system. And we get most of that back into our transit fund. So it helps to fund all of our services. And with a fund, a Tempe Transit Fund that's really kind of at its max operating capacity, it's really important for us to be mindful of getting that annual fare collection back. And that's partly why we always considered streetcar to have a fare eventually. Yes, Vice Mayor Adams.
Sorry, Eric. Just on the fee, the collection, are we going to have it be cashless?
Yes, it can be, and that's the final. That's great question, and that's some of the notes that are on the slide at the bottom of this particular slide. We're in the middle of the process of introducing a new fare collection system in the region. So smartphones, smart cards, cashless is all options that folks can do now. We sort of are in a more traditional system right now where you're paying a lot of cash. So cashless is where we're moving. More nimble, more contemporary, applications on your phone as well as a smart card. You can reload them at Circle K's and other grocery stores. We're moving towards that kind of a system. And that should be completed by 2024. So in partnership with the unveiling and the launch of the streetcar, we're also regionally introducing the new fare collection system.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so I think that covers this slide. Thanks for those questions. And then finally, next steps, where are we going? We are continuing to move forward with the $1 fare, expecting the $1 fare to begin on May 22nd of this coming year, 2023. We're working closely with Valley Metro. Obviously, this is a Valley Metro operated system. They will do, in partnership with our communications team, they will do all of the outreach, and we will also do that too, but work with ASU, put it in Tempe today, go to boards and commissions, but make sure people are aware that we are beginning the process of we're gonna have a fee to ride streetcar. And what does that look like? Make sure we get good public feedback on that, make sure that people know that that is happening. And of course, we would share that back to the council if we hear big concerns about that. So far, we haven't. So we will continue to do that, and then we will continue to do, as you mentioned, Vice Mayor Adams, the rollout of our cashless options for buying tickets. And then one thing we want to mention just to close this presentation is that as we've seen the success of the existing streetcar alignment, there has been continued interest in expanding the system. As council knows, we are embarking upon, in early part of 2023, a year-and-a-half study that will figure out what the next streetcar alignment looks like on Rio Salado Parkway, going into Mesa, past Riverview, past Tempe Marketplace, Cub Stadium. So taking it out into Mesa, we will be coming back to council to share updates on what that looks like. And that's just a study. It's not the construction funding or any commitment to construct. It's just a study about what that looks like on Rio Salado Parkway. And with that, I will open it up for any other questions.
Vice Mayor Adams, any additional questions?
No, I just really appreciate the update and very, very excited about expanding the streetcar. We would go both ways on Rio Salado, is that correct?
So this initial phase that we're looking at, the next study is really looking at just going east on Rio Salado. However, we are well aware of the discussions that are happening in other parts of our community along Rio Salado, and so there is room, because it's a study, there is room to change that scope if there were to be changes on, major destinations or things that the council wanted to see or connections that the council wanted to see with the streetcar. So right now, our scope is just looking at specifically going east. We have a future phase that would be going west on Rio Salado, but certainly we can adapt that study to include a different, a wider range or a wider range on Rio Salado specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
As always, Eric. Thank you.
Eric, I have a question. Thank you also for the presentation and the update. So I appreciated that people are adapting to it, and ridership numbers are good. They're positive.
Mm-hmm.
What could we improve upon right now?
Well, certainly, one of the things that, I'm thinking of my transportation cohorts here, we continue to, one of the things that we're doing every day is looking at how it interfaces with traffic. So all of our signals, how we stripe the roadways, like if you're at Millen University, you can see the streetcar has to kind of queue up in sort of a little bit of a different thing than most traffic is used to seeing. So we continue to refine those things and try to make it easier for the streetcar to move about and interface with traffic. One of the things that we look to long-term, though, is that there's about a third of this project that is in its own lane. Light rail's in its own lane. If you see it in the middle of the road, you're not really sharing traffic with cars and trains. So in the future, it might be important to look at in order to improve streetcar and really all public transit performance could be to have more dedicated lanes. Now, what that for transit, what that means is that you'd have less space for traffic, though. So that's a trade-off that, as council members, you all know, you hear a lot about traffic congestion, and so that's something we have to be really careful about. But that's something that would certainly help the performance of rail.
Okay.
Those dedicated lanes.
I think that's important to know. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions? No. Okay.
Thank you. I think that's it.
All right, we'll now move on to item 4A3, a presentation on Cool Pavement pilot project involving the City of Phoenix, who partnered with ASU's School of Sustainability on this one. We have Ed Bond, a senior civil engineer from the Transportation and Engineering Department, here to share a presentation. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you. So my name is Ed Bond, Senior Civil Engineer with Transportation. And like Arlene said, Council Member Arlene said, here to give a presentation on Cool Pavement and an update on where Tempe currently is and where we would like to go with this. So the Cool Pavement product is directly related to Performance Measure 1.22, which is to achieve adopted standards for Pavement Quality Index, or PQI, equal to a citywide average rating of 70 or higher. So I'll just go into the background of Cool Pavement and why we have it. So Cool Pavement is a seal coat that is installed on top of existing asphalt surfaces in order to extend the life of those surfaces and make sure that they remain in good or excellent condition. The Cool Pavement is designed to reflect heat and achieve lower surface temperatures through its lighter color and reflectivity. It's also designed to increase the life of the asphalt by 5 to 7 years. So why do we have Cool Pavement? So Cool Pavement is around in order to reduce the high temperatures associated with the urban heat island effect. So these heat islands are areas where higher temperatures due to the natural and the built environment of buildings, cars, and pavements. The EPA goes on to say that heat islands can affect a densely populated metro area due to the increased energy demands, air conditioning costs, air pollution, and heat-related illnesses. So Cool Pavement is one of the methods that is used to mitigate the urban heat island effect. We also have tree planting that provides shade, cool roofs, and green roofs are some other methods. So in early 22, the City of Phoenix launched its Cool Pavement pilot program. So this pilot program is the first time that the City of Phoenix explored the use and effectiveness of Cool Pavement to reduce UHI effect. In this case, a light colored sealant that is similar to the color of concrete was used. The pilot program was a collaborative effort between Phoenix, ASU, and other partners to install, test, and measure the effectiveness and durability of the product. And the goal was to find a tool that is effective in reducing UHI effect and improve the livability within the city, among other benefits. So the first application of Cool Seal in the City of Phoenix was at Audubon Park in June of 2020. Phoenix also continued installations on local public streets in the fall of 2020 and also in the spring of 2021. So the measured results from the analysis and testing of the Cool Pavement was the surface temperature was measured to be approximately 10 degrees cooler. The air temperature on average was measured to be half a degree cooler at 6 feet above the pavement surface. And then lastly, we have what we call radiant temperature, which is similar to like a heat index, and it's what you actually feel when you're on the Cool Pavement. So this measurement was shown to be 2.6 to 9.2 degrees higher due to the higher surface reflectivity of the pavement. So some of the observations and findings from the City of Phoenix pilot. From a solar reflectivity standpoint, the untreated asphalt has a typical solar reflectance value of 9 to 12 on our normal streets. So with surface solar reflectivity over a 10-month period during the pilot, began at a range from 33 to 38%. And then at the end of the 10 months, it had a range of 19 to 30% across all 8 neighborhoods that the City of Phoenix applied the product. From a pavement performance perspective, the pilot program did show reductions in surface and subsurface temperatures, which are positives for improving the lifespan and performance of the pavement. The cool pavement treatment must be applied in the early years of the road life while it's in good condition. Applying the seal coat early in the pavement life is known and proven in the industry to extend the pavement life. I will say that because this is such a new technology, that it's recommended that longer-term testing is completed to assess the changes in reflectivity, traction and skid, degradation, glare, and subsurface temperatures over time, particularly as the cool pavement ages. From a pavement aesthetics standpoint, the final product that the City of Phoenix installed is a light gray colored installation as shown in the photo on the left. The 2 photos on the right depict the product after anywhere from 6 months to a year's service. In Tempe, in my opinion and staff opinion, the light color of the product yields a surface that could be perceived as unaesthetically pleasing within the first year of the application. According to the findings from the report, further work is also required to provide guidelines to mitigate the surface dirt, tire markings, and degradation due to a lack of precipitation and the hot climate that is experienced here. The City of Phoenix also conducted resident interviews and surveys to get a feel of public perception. And these surveys yielded a wide range of public opinions and perceptions that provided insight into other cool pavement considerations. The opinions and perceptions communicated cannot quantify or cannot be quantified by atmospheric sensors or any of the technical equipment that was used to get temperature readings, but they're also important, right? Yes.
Can you explain that? So they did a survey of the residents that were affected by it?
So as far as I know, yes, it included the areas that it was applied.
And what were the results?
So from the public perceptions, as far as the perceivement of the product?
Yes.
Okay. So the report that was published pretty much goes on to say that additional exploration is needed in order to make sure that the perception that was given or the perception that was obtained from the survey is actually true and accurate. So they got a wide range of responses. Some liked it, some didn't.
Do you know what the percentage of likes versus dislikes?
Not at this time, I don't. I can find out.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So, so from public perception, the additional exploration of the potential use of this cool pavement technology and other pavement coatings with similar performance, yet a darker color, could help improve the perception that may have came out negatively. So from a staff recommendation standpoint here in Tempe, we have the perspective that there is enough merit to proceed with installations here. Based on the reports of the findings of the report, there are 2 products available that will help achieve the goal of reducing the urban heat island effect and extend the life of the pavement. So the first product that is available is the product that's Phoenix applied. It's called Cool Seal by Guard Top. It's a light gray product, and it is applied as light gray, and once it is cured, it remains light grayish in color. So this product goes hand in hand with the goals to reduce heat absorption, provide a surface that increases reflective values, and also reduces the surface temperature of the pavement. The second product available is the Asphalt Rejuvenator Plus TI product by Reclamite. It is actually applied as a pink color when it goes down, and then once it's cured, it turns translucent. So the pavement will essentially look the same as it is once it's applied. The product also meets the goals of absorbing heat, increasing solar reflective value, and also reducing surface temperatures of the pavement. So our current plans are to install the Cool Seal gray colored product in a city-owned parking lot in the very near future. We also plan to install the Translucent Rejuvenator Plus TI product on a local street. So we would like to install the colored product in the parking lot due to the concerns with tire grime, dirt, and glare, as previously mentioned. Mainly with glare, we want to make sure that we're not causing a new issue by installing the colored product on a public street. So we would also, for the same reason, want to proceed with the translucent product, which is the Reclamite, on a public street. So I will like to mention, it is important for me to say that in the pavement industry, we are in the very, very beginnings of this technology. And as previously stated, further work is going to be required to provide guidelines and explore alternative methods to install cool pavement, since a cool pavement surface that does not have the issues of dirt, markings, degradation that we experience here. It's also important for me to say that this gray colored product is not recommended for installation on arterials where we have high-speed traffic due to concerns with tire friction and wet weather, because the product does become very slick when it's wet. So like I said, we think it's the best to proceed with these 2 small-scale applications while simultaneously allowing the technology to progress further before going full speed with cool pavement installations. From a cost standpoint, here we show the approximated cost for each product. The typical seal coat product is around $1.75 per square yard. That's the non-heat reflecting product. So the translucent product, the Rejuvenator, is currently costing around $3.50 per square yard, whereas the Cool Seal is currently at around $5 per square yard. This price includes the product itself, installations, and incidentals such as traffic control, resident notifications, et cetera. So we are aware that there will be future federal funding opportunities to install this product, which typically would have the city provide a 20% match. So we are currently researching and awaiting the rollout of the grant application process for these new federally funded programs to potentially secure that funding. So that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you,
for the
Ed.
opportunity.
Hey, let's do this because we have Professor Jennifer Vanos on with us via WebEx from Arizona State University, and she's going to share their research, a presentation on their research. So let's do this. Let's also hear from Professor Vanos, and then we'll have, I think we also have someone from Cool Seal. All right. Then let's listen to the next presentation, and then we'll have all the experts, and we can ask everyone our questions. All right. Thank you, Ed.
Yes.
All right. Professor Vanos.
Hello, I am going to share some slides with you, so bear with me. Okay, that look good? I will full screen. Okay, I want to first thank Vice Mayor Adams and Councilmember Chin for the invite to present a little bit more of the work that Ed just overviewed for you on our Cool Pavement pilot program with the City of Phoenix. This pilot program occurred in the summer of 2020, which was the first year that the City of Phoenix embarked on this pilot program, which was very exciting. Our ASU team was very large. We had a lot of volunteers helping us out and some key City of Phoenix liaisons within their streets department and sustainability department. I was one of the lead PIs along with Professor Medal on this project. So as mentioned, the first location was was Esteban Park, and then the City of Phoenix moved on to do 8 neighborhoods across the city. It amounted to 35 or 36 miles of road, and this occurred in August and September of 2020. So our goal with this project was answering the questions, what is the impact of cool or reflective pavement on urban heat, and how is it perceived by residents? And I'm happy to jump more into those perceptions as well, and I'll share the full report so you can see some of the quotes we got as well. To do this data collection, we did full day measurements of local microclimates in 3 newly treated neighborhoods on very hot days. I think one of the days was 114, so we really got some of the maximum heat we would experience, and then we're able to see what could be the actual maximum reduction in heat if there is any in this time. We studied 3 important heat metrics, as was mentioned before: the surface temperature, air temperature, and mean radiant temperature. And I'll get a little bit more into that mean radiant temperature on a later slide. So we put air temperature sensors on a vehicle that drove pretty slowly through the neighborhoods. We had our mobile meteorological cart measuring any atmospheric parameter you could really desire, and that was pulled throughout the streets and on the sidewalks to understand what the human experience would be around this area. And then we did helicopter overflights with thermal imaging. And then our long-term assessments looked at the subsurface temperature, which was mentioned, and the pavement reflectivity. So how might that reflectivity be changing from when it was first put on throughout the year? And we're actually still doing measurements of this so that we can get some long-term assessments completed. So and this is an example of one of the neighborhoods, Garfield neighborhood. You can see over on this blue area, guard top by Cool Seal was installed. And then this area was your traditional darker seal, asphalt seal. We did 2 loops of air temperature per day, and then 1 loop throughout each of these areas using that mobile meteorological cart per hour. And we did this 4 times per day. So we looked at sunrise, which is generally your minimum air temperature of the day, high sun at noon, 3 p.m., which is generally our high temperature of the day around here, and then 7 p.m. around sunset. So results. So this was already mentioned, the overall averages throughout the day, but I think looking at the different, how it changes throughout the day is important as well. So we did see our maximum reductions in surface temperature. So that's what we would touch with our hand or what our dogs would walk on. At noon and afternoon hours, up to 12 degrees Fahrenheit difference from the traditional darker asphalt seal across the 3 neighborhoods. At sunrise, it was only 2.4 degrees Fahrenheit lower, but it's still lower, so that just is a good sign that the starting point for the start of the day is still cooler in terms of surface temperature, and then almost 5 degrees Fahrenheit lower at sunset. And then we can see this in a nice thermal image depiction of that, comparing directly the higher temperature, surface temperature on the darker surface versus the lighter surface. And then subsurface, this is, we put temperature sensors within the pavement, 1/2 inch down and 3 inches down. And compared to traditional, we see this just above 5 and 4.5 degree Fahrenheit reduction in the top and bottom temperatures. That is, as Ed mentioned, important for pavement preservation so that they wouldn't have to change the pavement out so frequently. And this definitely needs to be looked at over the long term to see if that's true and how long this can really provide this benefit. Here's some of those helicopter overflights, seeing those surface temperature reductions again. But these were really nice to get where we had some of the surfaces covered. Half of this road is covered in the cool seal here, while half of it still remained the traditional asphalt before it was fully covered. So we had this great opportunity on a really hot, clear day to do that. Okay, air temperature. So these were taken at 6 feet height, and these were slightly lower above the cool pavement than traditional asphalt. In the evening, 1/2 degree was the maximum on average we saw around across the neighborhoods, and then 0.3 degrees during the daytime. This is definitely an important area of future work to understand how we can best capture any air temperature differences at various heights in really similar locations in neighborhoods. So we want to make sure that where we're collecting it is not affected by too much wind and mixing of air or irrigation versus xeriscaped landscapes and all that kind of stuff. And we have been doing this work in 2020 or 2022 this summer, or this past summer, and are working on the results for that so that we can really grasp what could be the air temperature reductions that we're seeing, and doing it more frequently throughout the day as well. Mean radiant temperature is probably the most interesting result and hardest to explain, I think. So when you're walking on the cool pavement or beside the cool pavement, we saw an increased mean radiant temperature at noon by about 5.5 degrees Fahrenheit. This essentially is a higher heat load on the human body that was kind of already explained. You can think about it as the sum of the shortwave radiation and the longwave radiation interacting with the human body in every single direction. And that's why we have these 3 high-end sensors there facing up, down, left, right, back, front. These higher MRT values are essentially a necessary trade-off in order to reduce surface temperatures using a reflective surface. That reflected radiation has to go somewhere, and if it hits a human being on the way out, then the human being will absorb most of that reflected radiation, unless they are also wearing something reflective. And a nice way to think about this is you see here on the left, a normal surface might reflect about 10%. These cool pavements, when they're installed, reflect almost 40%, and then that degrades over time. But as you're walking over these surfaces, traditional, you would experience less reflection of solar. On the cool seal, a lot more reflection of solar radiation that interacts with the human body. And the trade-off with respect to how much less long wave is experienced by the human body doesn't counteract that increase of short wave. So essentially, that's why we see a higher mean radiant temperature value over the cool seal in the middle of the day. I want to be clear with that. Around sunset and in the morning, there's really not much difference because there's not much radiation interacting with the surface. And then the reflectivity declines was mentioned already, going from around 33 to 38% when installed down to 19 to 30% only after 7 months. And again, we are still looking at this and trying to see how these are changing over time. The extra rain is helpful. Cleaning the streets is really helpful to keep the reflection higher. And in 2020, we received very little rain. There's only one time it rained throughout this whole period. And then as we've seen, especially this past summer, a lot more rain. And so the streets we've been monitoring, we might actually be able to pick up when it rains and if that increases the reflectivity, because the dirt and dust on the roads decreases the reflectivity. And here's some pictures of what you end up with if the streets don't get cleaned enough. Which is some of what the residents do express concerns about, how you can see the tire marks, you can see the oil stains, you can see the dirt and grime on the roads. And I think moving forward, a lot of the companies are really pushing to get darker surfaces that still have as high of reflectivity as lighter surfaces using new technologies, so that you're not able to see some of this because of the aesthetics that people don't like. So summary, this is the most extensive application globally at the time. The city of Phoenix has since now done a lot more than that. I'll find the numbers for you on that, how many miles they covered in 2022, but they did 8 more neighborhoods. This is the first to present results on real world thermal performance. So out in the field, seeing what happens, and this is definitely of interest to cities globally, including City of Tempe. So there's a lot of still opportunities or needs that need to be done. A lot more long-term performance testing, more resident engagement and education, especially before installing it, to talk to the residents and see what they think and get some more interaction, I think. And that was very evident through some of the conversations we had. We have done the more immediate testing of air temperature, and then I think there's lots of opportunities to test, and especially in the real world, new colors of reflective pavement or types of reflective pavement. And then thinking about optimal location selection. I think this is really important to think about. Where does this work? Well, it works on a place where you have open area and the sunlight that interacts with the surface is able to reflect back out into the atmosphere. That means that open lots that are not shaded and low-rise residential areas are helpful. It does not work well in playgrounds, parks, or plazas, and that is, I mean, it can work well, but then you have high midday foot traffic, which results in people having a higher heat load on the human body, which then negates kind of your purpose of trying to reduce the overall heat experience of the residents. You don't want to put it in already very shaded locations, because then the sunlight doesn't have a chance to interact with the reflective surface. So putting it on a solar covered parking lot doesn't really help. And then if it's going to interact with the surface, you want to make sure it can get back out of the atmosphere. That means putting it in a high-rise downtown area wouldn't really make sense either. And this is something we really want to be able to put together, this nice guide for optimal location selection for cities and other businesses that are really interested in working with reflective pavement technologies across the board. So with that, I will wrap it up and look forward to just some discussion.
Thank you, Professor Vanos. So now that we've heard from Ed and Professor Vanos, we also have, tell me who we have on the phone also from Cool Seal. Do we have someone else on the phone?
We do. Davis Colias, I'm going to go ahead and make you a panelist. If you get a question, you'll be able to address
Great.
the council.
Vice Mayor Adams, let's start with your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Chin. So I've been pushing for the cool pavement for probably over a year now, so I'm excited to have this presentation come forward. So thank you so much. So you said that it increases the life expectancy of pavement by 5 to 7 years, correct, Ed?
Yes.
That's incredible. That's doubling the life expectancy of pavement.
Yeah, it really is great. And I think the main reason we anticipate those results is this cool pavement product was derived from a normal seal coat. They just, added a couple of ingredients, I'll say, to make it reflective. So yes.
Okay, so that saves a lot of money, because it's $1 million a mile to do pavement.
Exactly.
So to put a coat on this and get us double that amount of time is really huge. I love pavement, by the way.
Thank you.
So that also would help our pavement quality index.
Yes.
Correct, Shelley? Yeah, Shelley's saying yes. So very good. I like to see that. You also mentioned that about how long, like, it has to be on a new road, relatively new road. What is considered a new road that it would have to be applied to?
Yes. So from a PQI perspective, it'll be anywhere from a perfect score of 100 to around 80. And depending on the functional classification of the roadway will dictate, how long that is. So for a local street, we expect that to be anywhere from the first 5 to 7 years. And then for a collector, maybe a little less than that, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And like I mentioned earlier, don't recommend it on arterials.
Yes, that was a really good point you made. Thank you. Also, I guess I would like to ask the professor about what what product do you like best of the different companies? Or, and I'd ask you that too, Ed, actually, both of you. What do you think is the best deal and the most reliable that's going to hold up the longest?
So I will say, I kind of feel like it's kind of early for me to say, based off the experience we have in the Phoenix region with this cool pavement product types. I think from a perception standpoint, just my personal opinion, I think the translucent product would be better. But each product has its own gives and takes. I think also from a perception standpoint, if the constituent is mainly concerned about seeing it and actually being able to tell that we're applying something and we're trying to do something, then the colored product is the way to go because you can see that. So yeah, I think both have pros and cons besides the price. So yes.
Sure, okay. And the professor, what product do you like the best?
We've really only tested Cool Seal in that Cool Pavement pilot project year, and now this year we've been doing Cool Seal 2.0. So I can't say that I personally have a favorite. I think what is exciting to me is that the companies are pushing each other to innovate, and cities can also kind of tell the companies what their needs are, and they can innovate around those needs. And I think that that's good, especially as we are realizing there's a lot of different co-benefits or things to consider, potentially unintended consequences to consider, like I mentioned, on where this goes and when it works best and the perception of it. And I think that all should be part of the discussion around each city's needs or each neighborhood's needs or each business's needs that's looking into using some of these products, and how can you take those needs to the companies and see what they can do with it to create some really good products. And I can say over my time being part of this work, there's been a lot of exciting new products come about that are not like light or darker in color, but still as reflective. And hopefully we keep seeing that more and more so that we can get kind of a win-win out of these.
Sure, so one size might not fit all. It
Yep,
just depends
exactly.
on where the neighborhood is and all of the trees and everything that goes with that. Okay, makes sense. I appreciate it. I don't think I have any other questions.
Great. I have a few. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I'll just ask the question, and whoever wants to jump in to address it. So I have a few. The first one was, the primary objective for this research was, I guess the base research question was impacting the urban heat island. Is that correct? To mitigate urban heat island effects?
Jennifer, would you?
I'm happy to take that one. Thank you, Councilmember Chin. That I would kind of, but I would phrase it as the goal was to reduce urban heat versus the urban heat island effect, because we would have to then take all these measurements in rural areas to really pick up what that UHI effect is. So to reduce urban heat and within that intra-urban heat variability, so trying to reduce temperatures in areas that might already have higher temperatures, I think was the original goal of that pilot testing.
Sure, and I appreciate the measurements during the heat of the day. I'm also curious, given that question or related to that, the ongoing study of heat after sundown, the 7 p.m. and on, because that's what we're looking at, right? The retention of heat, and it releases to the air temperature.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct,
I'm going
yes.
back to basic, what I learned in my sophomore year of college, which was quite a few years ago.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Councilmember. Yes, I will say that if we're thinking about that, when heat's being retained in the day and then emitted overnight, and so that's when we start to see the greatest urban heat island effect. And we're also seeing across the valley higher minimum air temperatures, which is due to our urban infrastructure and all of the surfaces we're using that retain that heat during the day. And so in the 2022 data collection we did this summer, we did look at air temperatures and surface temperatures a little bit more into the nighttime to try and pick up that effect and see at what point are the temperatures kind of coming together overnight.
Okay, and I should have prefaced everything with, this is still early, right? Did I hear you correctly when you say the research that ASU and the city of Phoenix were doing together is one of the largest studies of this and one of the earliest studies of these products, or this one product?
I think it is the largest and the first of its kind, as far as I'm aware of. There is some work going on in Australia, but not to such a great extent. And then as we add in 2022, it becomes again the largest. But I think Davis might know more about what other areas of the world are exploring these technologies as well.
Davis, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. We've obviously partnered with City of Phoenix and ASU with the research that's being presented today. But as Jenny mentioned, we have also done some work with universities across the globe. In Australia, there's been extensive work. We have also worked with NASA JPL. Glenn Hulley and his team have a instrument on the International Space Station called EcoStress, which measures land surface temperature. And they've monitored some of the work that we have done in Los Angeles and shown that from space you can see temperature reduction both from a surface temperature as well as ambient temperature. And some of that work is now being done in Phoenix as well. NASA JPL has worked with, started to discuss things with the Phoenix Streets Transportation Department, to also evaluate that. And then we've also worked with one of Jenny's colleagues, Camille Kalouche, has some colleagues in the Middle East, University of Sharjah, which is just outside of Dubai. We were doing some work over there as well. So, it's important to have these third-party data metrics, to evaluate and for us to make improvements to the product. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole too much, but a lot of this data that was presented by Jenny's team in Arizona State helped to move City of Phoenix from pilot to program. And there were a few metrics that we had to change in order to get there. And a lot of it had to do with some of the feedback from residents. We now have a darker colored product, which is our chemists in our plant have color matched the tire marks that we were seeing to their best ability. So now we have a product now that is highly solar reflective, but also much darker and more aesthetically pleasing. So we are hoping to have the blend of the tire mark. And so we're not really using that light colored product anymore. And also due to some of the MARDI mean radiant temperature data, we are also using more infrared reflective pigmentation in our product. So we are more infrared reflective and less UV reflective than we were before. So we should be experiencing less of UV rays being broadcast onto humans that are on the surface, and we're about as reflective as a concrete surface. So the feeling of walking on a concrete sidewalk is similar to what we were feeling when walking on Cool Seal. So don't need to get into the rabbit hole that too much, but this data has been really important for innovation. And in order to move from pilot to program, we had to meet those metrics. And one of the biggest things with the City of Phoenix to now, we're about to cross 100 lane miles next year of Cool Seal applied. The biggest thing was the aesthetics as well as the perception of glare. And this darker pigment that we have that is just as reflective is helping get us there. So,
Great, thank you. Let's talk about that reflection and glare for a second. So in Phoenix, in all of the locations where this was tested, it looked like they were primarily residential areas. Is that true? Okay,
Yes.
so there were no taller buildings with windows, with reflective windows.
correct.
Correct, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, great, thank you. And I thought that Professor Vanos mentioned towards the end of her presentation that it was not recommended that this may not be compatible in areas with larger high-rise buildings. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Because what will happen is the reflective radiation will be reflected off the surface and then hit the buildings and be absorbed by the buildings. And you really want it to get reflected out into the atmosphere.
Okay. This is all good information. Now here's the question that I bet you knew was coming. What about the recent degradation of the surface in Phoenix from the recent rain that we had? Can you tell me more about that? What happened? How would one prevent that, or what measures are being taken to mitigate that kind of damage?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to address that. I was meeting with the City of Phoenix Street Transportation Department last week to go over this. So what happened is there is another product that City of Phoenix wanted to evaluate. They applied that product in the summer of 2022 alongside our Cool Pavement program. That product failed, and City of Phoenix approached us to recoat over the top of it. There were some concerns with doing that, with going over a product that had failed. So we did a demonstration on one street in order to see if that was a viable option. Due to the failure of that product that we were bonding to, we didn't have good adhesion, and that product, we weren't able to adhere to that product due to the failure of the surface below. So immediately, Streets Transportation Department, you know, got the rest of the product off of the surface, and now City of Phoenix is currently removing the other product that failed from the neighborhood. It's and now getting down to the original surface, and is no longer using that product, and has identified that there was a failure between that product and our product, where it wasn't compatible, just because we're only as good as the surface we were bonding to, and we're bonded to a surface that was degrading itself and wasn't a viable candidate. We have 73 miles of Cool Pavement down to date. This is the only neighborhood where that was affected due to surface adhesion issues. Our team in City of Phoenix went and evaluated every mile of pavement that is put down, and none of those issues are present. Going forward, the plan with City of Phoenix is to continue partnerships with folks like Arizona State University. We have done a lot of work with them in terms of all of this that Jenny and Ed are presenting, but also working on things like adhesion and things like that. The biggest thing, I think, is that we're an asphalt-based product designed to go on asphalt roads. We have been tested to adhere to all of those surfaces. Don't really know what is in that product. We kind of expressed concerns with the city that we're not really aware of it. They wanted to give it a shot in order to alleviate resident concerns of that other product being down before the end of the year, and realize that that's not an option. And so going forward, just compatibility with surfaces. I mean, we've done testing for over 10 years on being able to be on roadway surfaces, and we're able to go on any type of existing asphalt, but adhesion to that product that was not working was the bottom line issue there. And I'm happy to dive into that more, but that's what happened out there, and is not a concern of ours going forward, and nor with the City of Phoenix. We have 45 miles scheduled next year, and we were able to identify that was the cause of the issue last week.
Great, thank you. No, I think that addressed my question. Any other questions, Vice Mayor?
So and maybe this is for Davis, how much does it cost for a mile then to put this, your product on the roads?
So we're about $5 per square yard, as Ed mentioned. We're using about a quarter of a gallon per yard. So you're using about per mile, you're using about 2,000 gallons of our product. So you're probably looking at a cost of per mile of, let me just get rough. You're probably looking at about between $40,000 to $50,000 per mile of installed cost. One of the things we're working on too is to optimize that cost as well from an application standpoint. we ourselves and also the city of Tempe does now too. We've been working with manufacturers of equipment to streamline process of application, requiring less labor and doing things with mechanized equipment. We have a piece of equipment that's got a computerized rate control system to where in 2020 we had a crew of 9 laborers on the site putting down material. So now where we have a mechanized truck application where you have a crew of 2 individuals plus a crew of traffic control. We've cut that crew down by 3 times, and our labor costs are lower in that regard too. So we're anticipating seeing a decrease in labor cost that is going to help drive those costs down additionally, and also as we scale up to where in the early stages of these things, and cities like Phoenix, Los Angeles, we've done some work in other cities around the country as well. The more that these products roll out, the better purchasing power industry will have, and also decreasing of cost of raw materials as well. But we're about $40,000 to $50,000 per mile to answer your question.
So we'd be saving $960,000, or $960,000 by using this product to double the life expectancy.
Typically, yeah, over the life cycle of the entire.
Yeah, the life cycle, because it would double our pavement's life cycle
Yes.
and save $960,000. I like to save taxpayers' money,
Oh, yeah.
so.
Yep. Pavement preservation is definitely the way to do that.
Exactly. It seems like a win-win to me. And if we got a federal grant for this, how would that work if we could get a federal grant? Is it 80/20?
Yeah. Typically, yes, it's an 80-20 match where the city would have to provide 20% of that dollar amount, that $50,000.
Yes. Okay, and have we applied for any federal grants?
Not concerning this at this time. They have not been rolled out yet from the new infrastructure bill.
Okay, so we're waiting for that. Is that going to be January probably?
Yeah, I have no clue. So we're expecting it to be very soon, but yeah, as far as an exact time, I'm not aware of when exactly it'll come out.
Okay, so maybe we could have an updated presentation when that comes out.
With the federal program?
Yes, we know, yeah. Shelley knows I'm a planner. So maybe we could, start getting our plan in order then.
Yes, definitely.
Well, there could be an opportunity also in working with the city of Phoenix as they continue to test the product, if there's a joint grant application. And that would speak to the regional approach to several issues. It's not just streets, but it's also moving us towards our climate action goals as well.
Exactly. That's a great idea.
So we'll look for that. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
good
you all for the
presentation.
great discussion. I think this is a very interesting topic. It's timely and it's relevant for our area, but it's still new also in the research. I'm looking forward to further updates as we gain more knowledge. So thank you all. All right, that's the last of our scheduled presentations today. So now let's move to item 4B1, presentation proposals for future council committee meetings. And what I'll do is I will read the list of our current items that will be coming up in the near future, and then if there are any other recommendations that you have. So what I have so far, update on the International Green Construction Code, the IGCC, presentation on current activity with Rio Reimagined and the Brownfields Coalition, and an update on the downtown retail study. Are there other items you would like to include?
Yes, I would like an updated presentation on the cool pavement in 2 months, to see where we are and what the plan is. Will that give you enough time to put together a plan? Okay, thank you. That'd be great.
Great.
That's all I have to add.
Great.
Councilmember Chin?
All right, looks like we've got some good things coming up. Moving on to item 4C1, announcements. Vice Mayor Adams, do you have any announcements today?
I have no announcements today. Thank you. Councilmember Chin.
With that, thank you all for being here. We are adjourned.